You know, you mentioned it earlier. Know your role. We were talking about Soul forced to play in the backline and toss out the damage. Now, a Hunbat's job is a Hunbat's job is variable. It's not as diverse as Thor, I would say, but very rarely do you get the opportunity to play that offensive Hunbats where you want to go ahead and buy that Deathbringer. I mean, the way the Hunbat's passive works, it seems like an item you should buy all the time, but very rarely does it actually work out.
And it's easy to find the connected hits on the Hunbats with the Deathbringer when you can guarantee your bounce off of the Vulcan turret onto the Vulcan, and then you teleport to him. You're guaranteed one in-hand. You pop the Fear No Evil, a second in-hand. If the Vulcan doesn't react in time with the Purification Sanctuary combo, he can easily get 2 to 3 shot if the RNG is in the Hunbat's favor.
Which is why rare, but never say never. Hunbats winds up with a 3-1-3 slash line, 4-1-3 slash line. Hey, buddy, I'm the one doing a lot of the assassination. Nobody else on my team. Going back to all the way back to when you said know your role. My role, the Hunbats' role, is to assassinate the Vulcan. So finds that, buys the essential tools, and then is able to make sure that winds up happening. PutKettleOn. They didn't like the Nemesis last time around, totally, so they're going to change things up and ban out the jungler.
The cooldown is just too annoying. It's so short. You throw out the Jotun's Wrath on top of that, and you always have to worry about that within every 50 seconds or so. That's a lot shorter than your cooldown on your relics. You know, you have Sprint, that's about 160 seconds, the Purification, that also can cleanse the slow immunity. But on the flip side, Nate's minions, they don't really care, I don't think, off of the Nemesis ban.
I guess not, but Nate's minions ban out Arlong Shen. This character had 8 to 9 deaths without a single kill in game number 1, and frankly, I really wasn't impressed with what Mango Man... He wound up escaping a lot of the fights, so his 9 deaths could have easily been 18. So you give him a little bit of credit for getting out of there, but I didn't see enough bang for my buck as far as what Arlong Shen did on the enemy team. Nate's minions, on the other hand, feel very different, and they are somewhat forced to ban him out.
It could be a strategy where Nate's minions is adapting to a style where they don't want to play a second Guardian in the solo lane. Maybe they're going to put a Warrior, maybe a Hunter or a Mage, allowing a lot of flexibility by not having to worry about this Arlong Shen.
We'll take a look at where Nate's minions goes. Remember last time around, Nate's minions found success in a pretty much burst composition. They had the Nemesis, which is banned out right now, and they coupled that with a Vulcan and some more help setting things up with the Kumbhakarna in the solo lane. So with the Arlong Shen banned out, Totally said that might be tipping their hand into something a little bit different. Keep in mind, this is game point for Nate's minions. All they have to do is win this match, and they'll head on into the finals, whereas PutKettleOn will have to win this one and the next one to make that happen. You notice somebody missing from the bans list.
That's true. It's the Fafnir. Bacchus was available as well, but Fafnir is just a better team fighting god. He has the Coerce in Dragon form, which is going to proc off of multiple targets, whoever is near him while he uses it. The attack speed is just going to be tremendous. On top of that, any hunter now in that duo lane, whether it's the Chronos, the Freya, or a more traditional hunter, physical side of things, is just going to benefit a lot.
Now, you see, when you said Fafnir, I wouldn't even say Fafnir is the better team fight character. I would say he's the more open-ended team fight character. When you select Bacchus, you pretty much say, all right, we're looking to jump in and then delete somebody, right? Similar to when you pick a Nemesis, there's generally one direction to go. Fafnir is more open-ended in the sense that, all right, you got the Fafnir, and then we can select, we don't have to be burst damage, we don't have to be extended damage, we can do various different things. PutKettleOn, on the other hand, they have the Soul and the Neith. Now they've pretty much said, all right, we have a lot of basic attacks. In all honesty, Neith likely to wind up in the mid lane.
It's very possible. There's a lot of flexibility between these two picks, and I like the idea that PutKettleOn has, because now Soul Neith not able to be taken by Nate's minions. You can't find that synergy with the Coerce. So a little bit of a mind games, I would say, between these two teams off of that first Fafnir pick.
The Vulcan selection by Nate's minions, going to be reprised, and the Awilix play off of the Vulcan knockups should be very strong as well. Always love a Vulcan pick. I think Vulcan is a very fun to watch god in the mid lane, and especially when it's combined with some good old-fashioned just talent. And Sentinel showed us that he's ready to swing it.
Especially the counter off of the Neith backflip. It's just so easy to always find that pluck with the ultimate. There's just not much wiggle room that the Neith can really get away from that kind of ultimate.
Pretty much. We'll see how PutKettleOn round out their first round of picks. They've got 2 carries. Now are they going to opt for a jungler, maybe a guardian, which could wind up in either lane?
That's true. In this position, I wouldn't want to really reveal my strategy in terms of double guardian. But it's going to be the Kumbhakarna. This could be a solo lane Kumbha for PutKettleOn now.
I love the Kumbhakarna pick for PutKettleOn. I think it's less about, you know, revealing your strategy and just more about, hey, Kumbha killed it. I mean, Kumbha killed it for nMinos. Let's take it away from him, not allow him to go ahead and play that. So PutKettleOn will have that at their disposal. My question is, Mango Man, does he have it? Kumbhakarna is a flare pick in the solo lane, so I more expect this one to be CobbY, the support.
Well, you could find a lot of poke with the Kumbhakarna,
sure,
especially if you have any sort of synergy in your composition like they do with the Neith ultimate this time around. That's how Nate's minions found the win in the solo lane. It was the Kumbhakarna and the Neith World Weaver constantly on top of the Nemesis.
Well, here's my question to you, Tully. As a solo laner, how difficult is it to pick up Kumbhakarna? Just sort of like, hey, we need to play Kumbha so they don't get it. Can you do it? Is that a difficult god to pick up?
You just have to know how much damage you can do and at what stages you want to be throwing out those abilities. And as long as you're very conservative with your mana in the earlier stages of the game and transition safely in the mid game, that's when you start being the bully, because our Longshan can be a bully in all stages, whereas the Kumbhakarna, you're relying more on a very tactical timing to be aggressive. And whenever you had the Nemesis and the Neith to help you in the Kumbhakarna situation, it helped them transition into that bully role.
Looks like a little bit of a different thought process for Nate's. I seem to think that CobbY will be playing it, but Nate's minions ban out the Bacchus, which means that they're not convinced that Kumbhakarna is going to be in that support role. There could be some wiggle room for the solo lane. So Nate's minions are starting to ban out some Guardians.
Robin going to get taken away. Nate's minions not going to have that option available to them, which would have been a really solid bully pick. Osiris and Bellona are still available, but Bellona would get countered with the Yawn, obviously, canceling the bludgeon. And Osiris would be another good alternative if you're trying to win the early game.
I mean, Osiris is always a good alternative, right? He obviously wins the early game, and then late game, he's not... You don't call him a late game god, but he certainly does well in the late game, no problem. So Guan Yu, however, always, always, always a problem. Whether you're playing console, PC, iPhone, you gotta be aware of what Guan Yu's doing. He's just too much of an issue. Winds up making these extended engagements guaranteed losses.
Especially when you have a Kumbhakarna that's able to penetrate your backline with a cavalry charge on the Guan Yu.
Right.
If you separate the team fight, well, they're just gonna separate and chase you down as well. And whenever you have a soul late game on top of a Neith World Weaver, you can just stay on one path and easily find kills on that side. So Nate's minions doing a good job eliminating that penetration.
Susano will start some of the penetration for PutKettleOn. He's able to find his way to the back line, like you were talking about, using that dash, as well as some of the pulls. Either way, he can find a way to find his way to the carries. Nate's minions now will finish out their picks. Awilix, Vulcan, and Fafnir so far.
Susano gonna have a lot of mobility, so can ping-pong between the solo lane, mid lane, duo lane. Whoever is gonna be the most aggressive in PutKettleOn, Susano will be there to guarantee and follow up.
Chronos, love this character. He will be playing pretty much in the hunter role in that long lane. So we've got Fafnir, Vulcan, and Chronos. That's 3 magical. Awilix the only physical, so likely the solo laner will be traditional as far as the warrior is concerned, and it will be the king of the monkeys, Sun Wukong.
Very safe pick for a warrior. Has the long range poke with a jingle bang. You're looking for more of a situation where you're letting the Awilix and the Vulcan just control the mid harpies with the knock-up and obviously potentially finding that pull once you are level 5. And then from there, once the Sun Wukong can start out-rotating the Kumbhakarna, that's when these team fights are going to start going off now, because Kumbhakarna versus Sun Wukong is an interesting matchup because they both have a very easy line clear, but Sun Wukong can just stay in front of the Kumbhakarna to absorb that dash.
Right, so it won't actually hit the rest of the minions. Fun stuff. You see that frequently with players in the long lane against Onhers. They'll stand in between and absorb the impale so that they don't get, so that the back minions don't get hit. They just get hit, they get pushed back, etc. So we'll be taking a look at that lineup. Sun Wukong will be going head to head against either Kumbhakarna or Sobek.
That's true.
We'll have to see in just a couple of minutes. We're bringing you Game 2 of the semifinals of the Challenger Cup Console League. I'll be right back in just a few. Welcome back, folks. It's the Smite Console League Challenger Cup presented by Faceit. We're in our semifinal matchup, best of 3 situation. Right now, Nate's Minions taking on PutKettleOn. We're heading into game number 2, starting to get things figured out as far as that's concerned. But game 1 was actually really exciting. We got to see a neck-and-neck matchup pretty much for the entire time until the very last fight.
And the winner of this one is going to face the winners between Abstract and Battalion. Nate's Minions with a 1-game lead, so they're going to try to close this out. The picks and bans already implemented. We had the Fafnir first pick for Nate's Minions, and they were the ones to ban away the R-Long Shen. That necessarily wasn't a big factor for PutKettleOn.
Yeah, I think you made a good point when you said that the ban of R-Long Shen was less about ooh, we're scared of this choice, and more about that choice might mess up our composition in general.
Yes, and you just have to worry about like whether or not you want to do a double Guardian or you do the single Warrior. In this situation, some Wukong was picked as the last pick for Nate's Minions, so definitely leaning away from the Kumbhakarna that was actually picked by PutKettleOn.
And I mean, honestly, anytime I get to see a Sun Wukong, I'm pretty happy about it. So not that big of a deal, to be honest with you. As we think about sort of game number 2, like we said, this is the Console League Challenger Cup brought to you by Faceit. So these are the Pro-Am players. These are the guys that are trying to become some of the best and join the squads in the Smite Console League. You've had experience all across the board, both on a professional level. You've been around when Smite was sort of the Wild West before we had a pro league and all that, just sort of weekend tournaments. And you've even fought through the Challenger Cup yourself. Talk to me a little bit about the pressure and the feeling or the fun of fighting through the Challenger Cup.
It's quite a challenge, actually, in the best of... no pun intended there, actually. Yeah, facing a 32-team bracket back then, there was just so many teams that you had to battle your way through just to reach the semifinals and the finals. And by the time you get there, it's just so difficult because you've been implementing so many strategies. Now you have to worry about like, okay, have these teams been watching us play earlier on in the day? Do we need to change something up? So you also have to be worried about revealing too much earlier on in the day.
You also get different levels of performance as well. Like I said, the Challenger Cup is free for anybody to sign up. So you might be going up against Anatoly and the 4 best players in North America that just barely missed, or you might be going up against Sir Duckpot and 4 of the people called the 5 Angry Hindus that are trying to make a 5-man assassin team win, you know? So going up against different levels is also an interesting situation.
You just have to always adapt on the fly.
And that is a very big difference from the Pro League. Like we said, these guys wind up in an open bracket. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to have any sort of, you don't need to be masters. You can sign up, Faceit, very simple. All the information on esports.smitegame.com. So go ahead and get involved. Maybe you yourself and your squad will be the best of the best and find their way into the Smite Console League. So should be a very interesting situation for these teams to go forward because, like I said, some of these teams planned on it. Some of these teams said, all right, look, Nate's Minions, here we go. We want to be a Pro League team. And then other of these teams just sort of happened to find themselves successful.
And that's the beauty of competition in general. You know, there's different levels of competition and how successful you are towards it. Some teams are taking it more seriously than others, and some teams are having more fun. You have to find that right balance of the competitive side as well as the fun side. And then eventually, once you reach the higher levels, that's when all things get thrown out the window, and it's all serious games. If you qualify towards the SCL or even the SPL, it's all, the fun and games are still there, but it's not in the actual competitive games.
Exactly. The Challenger Cup League, as we said, it's all throughout online. You're able to figure it out and play and rough and tumble. But then once you're past that, you wind up in the Smite Console League. That's the big boy stuff. We even have a LAN for the Console League coming up soon. Those guys will be here live in Alpharetta, Georgia, playing right here at hi-rez Studios. So little by little, you can rise the ranks and be here yourself. But of course, in order to get there, you've got to make it through at least the semifinals of your Xbox Challenger Cup League. So why don't we take a look at picks and bans for game number 2 between Nate's Minions and PutKettleOn.
So yeah, like we mentioned before, the Fafnir was the first pick for Nate's Minions, and they elected to lean away from their double Guardian composition the last game. It worked out well for them because they had the Nemesis and the Neith, but this time around, PutKettleOn picked up the Neith and banned the Nemesis.
Well, and again, this is something very different because, as we said, when you're playing in the Challenger Cup, it's best of ones, if you will. I hate that phrase. It's single game scenarios, and you've got game, and then once you reach semifinals, then all of a sudden you've got to play the same team multiple times. So Nate's minions giving it a shot. They tried their double guardian strategy, and it worked. But now for game number 2, they want to switch it up because, as I said, you could do the same strategy game after game because it's different teams. But now that it's the same team, PutKettleOn, they might go, hey, we get your double guardian, we'll figure it out. So Nate's minions throwing them a curveball.
And especially, you're not revealing too much because if Nate's minions wins this, then they're going to go to the finals, and meeting them, Battalion or the other team, they're going to be able to see that kind of strategies and adapt to it.
It's all about the adaptation. Game of adaptation, as I like to say. And that small adaptation will wind up with Nate's minions on the right-hand side. They're going to be dealing with those guys. And PutKettleOn on the left. So our teams have swapped positions. We'll see how that works out for them.
See Chronos in the mid lane for PutKettleOn. A little bit of aggression onto Mango Man. It's not really going to amount towards much. He still has his items, so he doesn't have to back here. Just electing to start off a pretty normal start. Both of these teams not electing to place down any too aggressive wards. They're not really afraid of invades.
Yep, and honestly, there's no real reason, I would say, to be afraid of the invades. Maybe for Nate's minions with the Kumbhakarna one more time. Outside of that, PutKettleOn don't really have the... Well, Awilix Sun Wukong is actually a pretty fantastic invasion force. If I was Nate's minions, I might be a little bit more afraid. But perhaps knowing their opponent, realizing that there wasn't an invade in game number 1, and taking that information to the bank.
So we're going to see Vulcan and Soul in the mid lane yet again for the second game. It worked out for the Vulcan in the mid to late game stages when the Nemesis just kept being such a nuisance.
This is the hot trade, Toli. We had Sentinel on Vulcan last time around, and Sudsy on the Soul last time around. The hot trade.
Just wanting to mix things up. It's like, hey, I'll get a turn this time around on the Soul. You
Pretty
can have my
much.
Vulcan. But CobbY doing a little bit of poke on the Neith. Currently level 1 sitting. Once she gets level 2, we'll have the Unravel available to sustain all that poke early on.
Yeah, so no big deal right there, in all honesty. Auzrik now coming through, trying to get things happening. Won't be able to find the knockup, but finds a little bit of safety. No communication as Sun Wukong winds up following the Susano.
Very quick rotation. It's very interesting to see such a soul lane rotation, sacrificing a wave, trying to find a kill. If you're not fighting over the Fire Giant Elementals and you're not finding a kill, then you're sacrificing a lot of gold.
Yeah, twice in a row we've seen that play, and you can see Mango Man sitting on the bottom of the experience per minute, pretty much because of that choice, although that clear the wave brings him right back up one more time. But that rotation we've seen twice now out of the guys on PutKettleOn, and it hasn't been successful either time.
No, not at all. And because of that rotation and him clearing the wave, he took so much poke in return. Having to use those potions might hurt him, as the Kumbhakarna will hit level 5 momentarily soon.
Little bit there. nMinos gets stunned, but there's a good yawn. And our solo laners are no ultimates just yet, so Mega Man's free life not available. And the majority of nMinos' damage not online just yet.
No, and this is a perfect pick coming out of PutKettleOn with the Sun Wukong, dealing with the Kumbhakarna. You have the long-range poke, and on top of that, it's pretty easy to line up your poke and hit the Kumbhakarna at the same time.
So that's what Mango Man's going to be looking for. nMinos fighting the Sun Wukong instead of the Arlong Shen this time around. Pretty much no difference, I would say, in the way that he wants to take this fight. He wants to keep providing the poke, clear the wave first, and then just punch Sun Wukong. Both characters, Arlong Shen and SWK, will be able to heal up a little bit thanks to the ultimate, but it's still the same old idea of providing poke.
CobbY just being a little annoying, jumping on the Neith, and that's going to allow the Chronos to clear the way very safely as CobbY puts himself in position, and then the Chronos can easily sit back, clear the wave, no problem, but Negate possibly looking for a pluck.
Absolutely looking for a pluck, but not going to be able to find it. CobbY might have been in range, but not willing to take the gamble just yet. And PutKettleOn's strategy is very different from Nate's in this lane, I would say. PutKettleOn They kind of just want to farm and be quiet. Nate's minions, on the other hand, they want to force fights every single day.
Yeah, the mid and jungle was making a rotation underneath, but they decided not to commit as the retreat from Fafnir and Chronos was just too close to that tier 1 tower. The speed buffs are about to respawn. Coming at that 320 mark is when both of them have respawned. Soul and the Susano going to start up the speed. Meanwhile, the Awilix just going to jump in the mid lane, going to clear the mid wave first, and then potentially go for the buff.
Looks like it. Auzrik will head right back into the jungle, whereas Susano, waiting for the blue buff, not available just yet.
Being able to delay these timers might allow Auzrik to find the early invade onto Nate's minions. Now, you're delaying your speed buff here by about 25 to 30 seconds or so. So even if you're not successful in the speed buff invade, you always have the fallback opportunity to go get your own anyway.
So it's just always something pretty much available. Always keep something in the cupboard.
Just keep something in the pocket for later, you know?
Exactly.
Some
Pocket
leftovers.
dogs.
Some leftovers.
Some pocket dogs.
Some leftover pizza rolls.
Game number 2 here. Sudsy Gibson trying to clear things out. Like we said, the first one went to Nate's minions, but I can't mention this enough, Tolly. Game was 35 minutes and tied for 33. That, I think, gives you a perfect example, or explanation, rather, of what these two teams are fighting like.
Just have to be so careful about these early positionings against the Sobek. Having to retreat is the Fafnir. Red buff being taken, going to get dropped for the Vulcan. Sometimes you would want to put that on the Hunter, but at this stage, the Vulcan and the Awilix, there's a lot of kill opportunities, so it's a wise idea to stick it on the Vulcan.
Absolutely. I think Vulcan and Awilix is one of my favorite mid jungle combinations, not because of the obvious meatball into ultimate from Awilix, but because instead of the feather step sticking the opponent into whether it be the ultimate or just a couple of extra ticks from the turret winds up doing a ton of damage.
5-minute mark now. Game is still pretty close at the moment, but PutKettleOn, they've established a decent 1,000 gold lead. They haven't really invaded, and they haven't really found a kill.
I mean, this gold lead, 1,000 gold from nothing, is very, very interesting because that gold lead doesn't just come from, you know, a rotation by the Wukong getting a bunch of harpies. I mean, where does this 1,000 gold really come from, Tolly?
It just seems that there's a little bit of an advantage for the Wukong that was able to force some minions under the Soul Lane Tower. Kumbhakarna had to sacrifice it. The jungler is slightly ahead as well as we look at these gold differences.
Yeah, it's the supports, really. And Sudsy doesn't need any support of his own, fighting the long-range shot to take down Cauzing's Susano. And that's going to open the window for an early game Gold Fury at least attempt. It's going to be a 4-on-4, or a 3-on-4 rather, as one player is down. Hunter duel, Auzrik taking out one. So there's 2 kills going the way of PutKettleOn, and now they definitely can take out the Gold Fury.
And that's going to allow them the wiggle room. However, Soul still spots it out.
Smack.
There's not that much damage. Oh, Mango Man, you don't really want to be doing that with the tower hitting you. You have to respect that tower that early. And that's the beauty of Kumbhakarna the Soul Lane. We were talking about that game number 1 as the Gold Fury did get secured by PutKettleOn, establishing a 3,000 gold lead.
So you know that early 1,000 gold lead is instrumental here because the early Gold Fury doesn't give you this much gold. The 1,000 gold lead allowed PutKettleOn to go ahead, start a fight, make the room, get not just first blood, but also the secondary kill, and then take out the objective. So very early on here, 6 minutes on the clock. We're approaching 7, but 6 minutes on the clock is when everything all just happened. That really was pretty exciting.
All it takes is 2 quick kills, and then bang, you have the Gold Fury at your disposal. Vulcan makes it so much easier also to do the objectives with that turret, just constantly applying so much damage. The longer a team fight lasts, the longer the Vulcan turret will be successful. So same situation with any objective such as the Gold Fury or a Fire Giant even.
Just allowing the turret to do some of the heavy lifting as opposed to the players themselves. Good knockup, not a good backfire for Sudsy Gibbon.
Just trying to really find the poke now is PutKettleOn with this Vulcan. He has to be put in a position where he finds the meatball to allow this Awilix the follow-up with her ultimate. And then CobbY could easily find the initiation to disrupt all of Nate's minions.
Yeah, Soul even trying to toss out some of the damage to really stop a lot of what PutKettleOn want to do here. And a very different game from last time around. We were neck and neck pretty much for the entirety of it. Auzrik for the second time finds the Hunter, and bughul is gone.
And this is a perfect counter pick from PutKettleOn. They picked this Awilix to deal with the Neith. That's the timing of the picks and bans. Last time around, it was banned against them. This time around, they're basically using this in full effect.
Wonderful play. And good Awilix play is so exciting. It might be, you know, players always ask me, or people always ask me, you know, who my favorite god in Smite is. And I wind up watching more Smite than playing. Although I wind up playing Smite 6 to 7 days a week, it's pretty much all Smite. I think good Awilix play. When you're able to find the knockups through the walls, fantastic feather steps to both deal damage and avoid it yourself. I think Awilix might be one of my favorite gods to watch.
She just applies a lot of pressure also in the early game, the level 1 to 2, the Feather Step. It's a lot of sneaky damage. You don't really expect Feather Step to do so much damage that early on, which is why she's so successful. Mid lane, gonna find the pluck onto Vulcan.
Nice knockup. Susano trying to do it as well. The ultimate from Vulcan not going to be enough, but Negate gets negated. Auzrik again with the fancy feather step. Can't find the knockup from a distance, so Sentinel will be safe, but the ultimate out of Neith takes out Sudsy Gibson off screen. Rotation from solo lane. nMinos in some trouble, or starting it rather. 1v3, doesn't care, just takes out the jungler. And that's going to be a good play from him. Teammates show up to avoid the jump in. Dragon does it anyway, but finds nothing.
Finding the root. However, Mango Man with the cudgel doesn't have that much mana to follow up, and he's forced to back. The teleport is coming off cooldown in about 12 seconds, and I love that World Weaver. Look, there was a ward in the mid lane placed by Nate's minions. I think that's exactly what happened. Vulcan barely escaped that team fight. He decided to back under the safety of his tier 1 tower anyway, but there was a ward that spotted him out.
And you know that ward, one of my favorites, and it is a standard ward. It wasn't always a standard ward. Years ago, there was only one team that did it, and now we see pretty much everybody do it. It shows you where your jungler is going, the enemy, of course. It shows you where the enemy jungler is headed. It shows you any rotation that the mid laner decides to do, and there's an added bonus. It allows you to get those World Weavers when people are safe under the tower.
Both teams seem to forget about this in the early stages of the game. Chronos getting a nice rewind, preventing a lot of burst damage from the Susano gank.
Cooldowns are up one more time, but the stun not going to find a home, but no harm, no foul.
Forcing a rewind, good successful gank, I would say, at the end of the day for Nate's minutes. You don't always have to find the kill. And that's how you can get yourself in trouble, because you feel like, oh, okay, we forced a rewind, we have to commit and get this kill. No, you got the rewind, just reset.
Especially, you know, great pull, and Negate's in some trouble. Feather Step stops the dash. Auzrik on a tear one more time. 4-1-1, he's got the info. And everybody on the side of PutKettleOn, much different story from game 1.
And with that one pick, Gold Fury is about to respawn momentarily. There is the timer for PutKettleOn, but they're going to do the left side mid harpies and red buff before they try to set for that one up.
You know, Auzrik last game around, anytime you play a utility god, Mango in some trouble. Should be fine with an ultimate in a bird form away. Anytime you play a utility god like Hun Bats, sometimes you can look better than you are, if you will. Right? But seeing it 2 games in a row, Auzrik on both the Sun Wukong and now the Awilix, 2 very different play styles. I'm loving this guy, totally.
Absolutely, but he's doing a great job prioritizing the right target. The earlier stages, he's focusing the Neith, getting her out of the game. The Chronos was able to do a lot of damage to that tier 1 tower during that respawn timer, and now the Vulcan is just doing a wonderful job with his positioning.
And there's the ultimate out of the Kumbhakarna, making sure that Mango isn't in the good position. 4 players surrounded by 2. Lurking in the waters is popped, as well as a whole bunch of other ultimates, and JoyousHazzy picks up 1. Damage coming out from the Dragon, still going on 3v2. Cauzing on the backside winds up a kill, but Sudsy Gibson ends up being safe.
Trading 1-for-1 currently. These 2 teams trading off very evenly currently. Susano looking for a potential engage, as the Sun Wukong is very much playing aggressive without an ultimate. Could get really punished here, but off of that pluck, the Susano didn't want to commit.
Well, sometimes you get saved by the enemy team. Negate saves the life. The Sobek saved the life of the Sun Wukong right there. Flat out. Mango Man does not get out if Charge Prey doesn't hit him.
You know, sometimes you just feel you don't want to be too aggressive. You know, you're like, I am a merciful god. And that's exactly what Sobek was thinking to himself. We'll get you next time.
Yeah, just we'll get you next time. Ultimately, nothing to be grabbed from the 1-for-1 exchange.
Gold Fury is still up, coming up to the 13-minute mark. PutKettleOn still having about a 3,000 gold lead. a pretty decent experience gap as well, 5,000. They should be trying to force these team fights currently. But speed buff is respawning, so that could be that one objective.
Again, a much different story from the first game around. We saw virtually no lead, now already a 3,000 gold lead, and we saw pretty much just team fights. Now we're seeing ganks and ganks and ganks and ganks, causing in some trouble, knocked up, so is Auzrik, but essentially, Auzrik, oh man. I thought Auzrik would go after it, decides not to. 2-on-2 in the solo lane. Now, Awilix in some trouble, jumps away to safety. Can the Sobek catch up? Doesn't look like it. Neither will the Kumbhakarna. Instead, CobbY shows up, and Fafnir will play support.
It was a perfect counter gank by Auzrik, almost finding the kill on Susano, but a great disruption by nMinos with that epic uppercut. Just no possible way to secure that kill. And then Sobek making a name for himself yet again in these team fights.
Totally. I thought production spoke to me. I actually just spoke back to them. It was the Awilix skin. The Awilix skin, when she gets in trouble and barely escapes, the cat will talk to her. I thought it was production. Oh, Awilix.
That's something that could also play against you whenever you escape from a team fight and then that sound goes off. The enemy can capitalize off of that, so you have to be really careful about where you back after you escape.
And what skins you use. I mean, I remember players staying away from some of the holiday skins because the Thanatos skin just sort of laughs in the jungle whenever he feels like it, so very careful which skins you opt to use. Solo lane, the elemental skin versus the vanilla. Not going to find it. Look at the effect of the Neith ultimate. Even if Sun Wukong gets Neith ulted, can still take that fight. Opts not to, just because of who knows what's going to follow up off of that stun.
You don't know who's lurking around the jungle, even though there's a team fight going on. Mana advantage for the Kumbhakarna, so Sun Wukong going to play very carefully under his tower. The teleport is available. Gold Fury still not being started by either team. It looks like Nate's minion has the Sentry Ward, so they do spot out the fact that PutKettleOn has a little bit of positioning advantage there.
Yeah, it looks like the vision was just swapped. PutKettleOn drops a sentry of their own, so takes out Nate's minion's vision. JoyousHazzy. What a name. Messed that one up in our last exchange, but I don't know if he continues to play the way he has been. I certainly think I owe him a little bit more respect. I liked his play in game number 1 on the Hunter. This time around on the Chronos, certainly doing very well.
He had a different style compared to the Hui and the Chronos. He's more of a slower paced game compared to the first one, just looking for whatever he can. His only real aggression was off of the kill that the Awilix applied on the Neith and getting that tower poke onto that tier 1 tower, but it's a Chronos, so that can come along very quickly.
Exactly. I like when Chronos' play a little bit more relaxed in the lane, because their time to shine is really the later the game goes. You know, once you have your 5 and 6 items, you're able to just annihilate players. So yeah, play it safe. No reason not to. Absolutely. Mango Man, on the other hand, certainly going to look for some more aggression. There's the ultimate out of Negate in the mid lane. CobbY by himself, but just takes a hair.
It's only in the 11th Sobek, not much damage from that lurking in the water. It's a Guardian Sobek, so all going to be full defense oriented, and CobbY can just easily sustain. And with this committal, the Vulcan turret and the accelerate from Chronos, this Gold Fury should go for PutKettleOn.
Mango Man taking the Gold Fury to the other side. That's a bad deal, but PutKettleOn still able to find the Gold Fury. Great play on the objective. Winds up giving PutKettleOn a 5,000 gold lead, or at least just underneath it, more like 4K. Love that play call.
And that's what you need to do. You have the Wrath available to you. There's just so many members of Nate Minion that wasn't quite in position to really capitalize off that. And the objective damage coming out of the Chronos, you have to respect it.
Sussy Gibson in some trouble. Pull onto the tower for the support. And a beautiful play by Auzrik. Feather Step gets a tower shot into the kill. Love it. Jungler on fire. 5-1-1. Kumbhakarna knocks one into the sky, takes the kill, and Auzrik gets commended and complimented, but with a bad attitude. There's the second death.
That World Weaver wasn't even intended for Auzrik. It was about to hit CobbY instead. Just unfortunate positioning, sacrificing your jungler. And now look at this. The Chronos taking a lot of poke. That tier 1 tower could be aggressed on, but it's the red buff that's going to be aggressed on instead. Nate's minion's going to strip that away. Vulcan's not going to be able to really take that quite yet, as the mid tower's about to fall.
Trouble with the minions. ZhaZzy should be able to go back and get his red buff. He's a little bit scared.
He doesn't want to give up that tier 1 mid tower, though. That's the internal struggle that he's having at the moment.
Well, it's already gone. 500 gold going the way of Neith's minions, so that'll shorten the lead up just a little bit. Ultimates not available here in the solo lane. You can see nMinos just got his back, but Mango's still sitting on his.
Mango Man recognizing that the rotation has been made. He has not many options to go. Look at the surround coming out of Neith's minions. They don't really want to commit, however. It is a Wukong that will sustain off of that ultimate, just respecting it. But look at this. Minos going to get stunned out and into the passive, and nobody's there to deal with it. Just a little bit of a miscommunication.
Ooh, can he finish it off? Is the attack speed quick enough? Not quite. Minos answers back with the ultimate. Keep in mind, Mango Man just used his, so not available to it. Little bit of poke from the Jingu Bang. And a good shield, thanks to some itemization choices coming out from the monkey.
And that's why you have Kumbhakarna in the solo lane, to find the yawn in between your passive. Doing a lot of poke to the Awilix. Minos still trying to trade with Mango Man, but it's a mana advantage for Minos, but a health advantage for Mango Man, as Auzrik does fall to bughul.
And there's the jump forward from CobbY, trying to make something happen for his deceased jungler, and they will. CobbY takes out Negate, but really it was all about HazZy's damage right there. Chronos bringing it big, bringing it wide, and everybody else on PutKettleOn now going to have to retreat. And this tier 1 tower on the left-hand side will be the target of everybody's ire.
Clearing the wave before your own wave allows the Vulcan turret to eliminate the backdoor protection, clearing out that tier 1 left-hand side tower very efficiently. On top of that, we could see the Wukong continue to push out. There's no competition in his lane quite yet.
Well, the wave's certainly going to reach that tower, but it looks like Wukong wants to go ahead and back. The side's better of it.
Yeah, he doesn't have that much mana currently. He does have the ultimate available, but that would be the only amount of mana that he would have for that one ability. He wouldn't be able to have the bird form to escape any potential gank, and that's something that Neith's minions could start to take advantage of. They made that rotation towards solo lane, and then they just retreated. They didn't really want to commit to the Wukong. Even though the ultimate was forced, they could have still lurked around that corner.
It was just, I guess it was just more about what else is around the map. Other things that, should they commit to the right side, obviously not the gold fury, but too many towers available for the enemy to really commit to. 2020 on the clock. PutKettleOn now leading by a fair amount. 4,600 gold, 8-5 are the kills as well. A much different story from game number 1, again, which was incredibly tight.
Exactly. It was very tight. About the 33-minute mark, those teams were only separated by 1,000 gold. This time around, it's going to be PutKettleOn with a pretty good lead and a pretty good opportunity to close out the set.
Minos, on the other hand, trying to change things around. Keep in mind, this is the best of 3, so Neith's minions need to win this one to make it a short series. PutKettleOn, however, looking for that game number 3. Ultimate out of the Vulcan, not going to be on point, but everything else will be. There's Negate finding a pluck onto a minion, but more importantly, stopping himself from going a little bit too deep. Tier 2 tower on the left being aggressed on, and pretty much a non-team fight here on the right.
Just having to reposition themselves as there's so many members low from PutKettleOn. Nice Typhoon. CobbY's going to be the first victim. Soul Stole doing a lot of damage. Nice
great pull
onto Negate. Gonna get deleted.
Auzrik now leading the charge, in some trouble. Mango Man barely escaping. Minos wants to make it happen, but gets shot by Gibbons over the wall and through the woods. Sudsy Gibson 4 gets the kill.
And HazZy just continuing the onslaught onto this duo tower, forcing the Neith out of the lane, was able to secure the tier 2 tower earlier on, and now he's going to strip away the red buff.
Sudsy Gibbon on a tear. Loving his accuracy on this Vulcan. Was able to find the meatballs over the wall. The long range backfires as well. Auzrik trying to turn things up. There's the knockup avoided, but the damage sanctuary a little bit too soon, and the feather step will take care of the soul. Sentinel, the mid lane, sitting down.
And this is where respawn timers are very long. There's a lot of opportunity for PutKettleOn to get this tier 1 tower and still find maybe more, but there is a speed buff potentially. Auzrik, however, he is poked out. He's just going to reset.
Mango Man, on the other hand, does not get the memo. This is the second time that we've seen players run away while Mango Man sort of stays and clears up a wave or clears up a jungle camp. Hasn't been him yet, Tolly. He's still 0-0-3. But there will come a time where all of a sudden Mango Man's by himself and gets collapsed on by the wrong color team.
He has a lot of defense currently. He does have Breastplate of Valor. He furnished the Bulwark of Hope first, trying to deal with the Kumbhakarna. And now this Transcendence Breastplate of Valor combination will allow him to stay in the backline and just punish this Soul or Neith. It's going to be very difficult for either of those two to really get away.
PutKettleOn trying to start up their second Gold Fury, or the third Gold Fury, excuse me, of the game. Almost forgot about their 5-minute and 45-second one, but this one, easy. Goes down again the way of the blue team. Neith's minions just barely show up in time, and Negate takes a lot of poke, but PutKettleOn came what they came for, got what they came for. Quick and easy gold.
Auzrik doing so much damage to this Sobek. Only level 14 currently. Was forced into using Lurking in the Water. This Neith is in so much trouble, and this is why you pick Awilix against Neith. That backflip comes out, you pull her right back in.
I mean, it's just way too easy for the Awilix to capitalize off of that. When it comes to a Scylla, right? You've got to be really, really good and have reflexes of a golden god in order to grab that Scylla from underground. The Neith flip, I think it takes us, it's like a trip to California. It's like a 5-hour backflip. You're able to pull it off very easily, very leisurely, and Neith is just pretty much countered by Awilix, even more so than some of the other gods that have jumps.
Wukong trying to do a lot of damage to the Susano, just zoning him out while the rest of his team successfully gets the tier 2 mid tower. Now gonna regroup, gonna try to find the knockup. Nice little juke coming out of the Kumbhakarna, and with the Yarn, he should be able to escape. And it's very tricky at this stage without Fire Giant to really continue this push onto a Phoenix.
And nMinos, even by playing the Kumbhakarna in the solo lane, still a very tanky character by nature, but also by itemization choice. You can see the Breastplate of Valor and the Mantle of Discord coming out, so not very easily taken down is that guy.
So we were talking about after the end of the first game how these two teams specifically need to figure out ways to close out the game. But I'm looking at PutKettleOn, and they've adapted already from the first game, being able to strip away every single objective. And already 25 minutes in, they're up 12,000 gold. 12 times more than they were up at the 33-minute mark last game.
And what is the largest difference here? Because for me, PutKettleOn, they looked okay. Nate's minions was the one that was really impressing me outside of Auzrik. I think Auzrik was fantastic in both games. Is it just Auzrik? I mean, he's doing well here. He's 7-3-3, but there's got to be another influencer.
Honestly, it is all Auzrik, I would say. Just the pressure that he's applying to both side lanes, just forcing out a lot of some Wukong ultimates, meaning that he has to stay passive. He can't really rotate to team fights without having that big important defensive cooldown ultimate. Applying the pressure on the Neith to allow your Chronos to transition in the mid to late game allowed PutKettleOn to get that early Gold Fury and then that 16.5-minute Gold Fury as well.
So sometimes, you know, we always say Smite's not a single-player game. It's all about the team. But what Auzrik's individual gameplay is doing is enabling the rest of the team to be successful, whether it's the Chronos, like you said, who will take over a little bit later, or some of these early lanes that needed some of the push. We've seen him do it 3 times with Gold Fury, and there we see it happen with the Fire Giant. Started while nobody's paying attention, and now PutKettleOn trying to take that Fire Giant offensive.
And with this pressure, the Sobek's in a little bit of trouble. He's going to get forced into using Lurking in the Water to prevent getting knocked up from that Typhoon. The Coerce is going to be available after the Dragon form, but so low is the Awilix. Auzrik having to retreat from this team fight.
Auzrik going to be out on the left-hand side, but PutKettleOn coming up on the middle. Not going to find much of anything. Good split push coming out from the guys. You can see the Tower Killer on the right. Chronos will join up with the rest of the squad. Auzrik coming up from the left as well. So the split up now combines trouble for Fafnir as he's trying to lead the charge as Auzrik takes out Cauzing.
Just so much damage, level 20, Awilix with the Fire Giant buff. You have to respect it, the Stone Cutting Sword as well. Perfect knockup coming out of CobbY. And the rest of this team fight, Mango Man is going to go into the sky, going to regen some health. CobbY, yet again. Negate's going to fall.
Up. CobbY's going to go ahead and tank up the tower. Following up is Mango Man trying to find the knockup, but gets knocked up 20 times himself. Jiggle Bang not far enough, but the mid lane Phoenix will fall down, and that's a lot of space, Tully. Auzrik trades his life to allow his team to start on the right-hand Phoenix.
And trading off the life is definitely worth it with the second Phoenix down now. There are 4 members up on the side of PutKettleOn, only 3 to
Will he
defend.
get it? He does! Sunsy Gibson over the wall. Sentinel, no idea that one was coming. All the way from over 2 separate walls. The Vulcan ultimate claims the life of Soul. 3 Phoenixes down for PutKettleOn.
And there's just nothing that Nate's minions can do about it. They tried to find the Typhoon, and Cauzing gonna fall to JoyousHazzy. Just a beautiful time rip through the wall. And this is what you have to worry about the Chronos in the late game. There just wasn't enough pressure put on him in the earlier stages.
JoyousHazzy in some trouble. Winds up with the rotate. Not so bad. There's a great stun and the follow-up damage on nMinos. Puts him in the passive. A couple of basics. Negate doing a good job, and that should save the life of the Kumbhakarna for now. Can't find the kill. Is PutKettleOn, but they got what they came for. It's only one more time. That seems to be the real motif for these guys. It might be a little bit, they might lose a couple of members. It won't always be clean, but whatever objective they put their mind to, they absolutely obtain it. 3 Gold Furies, 1 Fire Giant, and 3 Phoenixes later, PutKettleOn leading by over 10,000 gold.
Just very disciplined and very constructed in their plan. Getting the Phoenixes, getting the Fire Giant. They didn't even commit to the Kumbhakarna kill because there was no reason to. You still have such a comfortable lead. Had the Chronos thrown his life away from maybe a Kumbhakarna kill, then who knows? Nate's minions could potentially force another objective to slowly come back, because there always has to be that one initial spark to come back into the game. But PutKettleOn is not giving Nate minion that spark.
You've always got to have the quest text, right? If I kill this guy, what do I get off of it? A lot of times the reason to kill a player is to, well, get an objective, Gold Fury, Fire Giant, etc. Like you said, if Chronos dies, does that allow you to win the game? Absolutely not. So not really going to be the case here. PutKettleOn lose their jungler, and they're going to fight this one into a 3v4. PutKettleOn still trying to make the difference. Can't take out the support, but CobbY engaging on 1, and Mango Man engaging on 2. Sentinel falls down.
Mango Man doing a good job finding the kill in the backline, zoning a lot of members to allow his Vulcan to do so much damage in the backline, and that's what you want to do. Zone out members to allow your mid-mage to get off all his late game damage.
Jumping forward is going to be CobbY, trying to do what he can and keep everybody here. Chronos coming up the mid lane should be devastating at this point. If this fight goes the way of PutKettleOn, Coley, I think we're seeing a game 3.
It's going to be interesting to see, as this is going to be the final push. There are so many fire minions coming in to fruition. This Titan is going to fall very soon.
Yeah, 4 players here in blue jerseys, and down it goes, 18-8 in just over a half hour of play, and a much different story. Nate's minions lose this one, almost down 20,000 gold.
It's such a different storyline between game number 1 and game number 2. Just PutKettleOn definitely putting on their stuff.
Yeah, just incredible stuff coming out from these guys. And like I said, I say incredible because it was a turnaround, right? Game number 1 was so tight, and game number 2 was just PutKettleOn just walked in and said, no. They said, no, we're going to do it differently this time. And the biggest change in picks, was it in picks and bans or just an overall execution?
It was a little bit of both, I would say, for sure. PutKettleOn definitely adapted to the style that Nate's minions had with the Kumbhakarna in the Soul lane. You had the Wukong that was playing a little bit more careful this time around as opposed to the Arlong Shen
I'd say so.
in game number 1, not giving up too many kills to allow the Kumbhakarna to make that rotation. And this time around, you didn't have to worry about the Neith too much this game. And you had the Vulcan and the Chronos that was also allowing basically so much control in space with that turret, and the mid to late game damage are the Chronos.